Duke and San Bruno wants to jump in on the Warriors conversation we were having with Anthony Slater. We can get back into the Dubs, 888-957-9570. Duke, what's going on, man? You're on with Spadoni and Lubman.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Okay, so kind of hear me out on this. With the exception of you and maybe a handful of guys on the game, I feel like Fitzgerald especially and some of the beat writers, they're like Draymond apologists. I mean, I'm just an old man watching basketball on TV, and it's refreshing to watch basketball, see the young guys who are very athletic, moving the ball, making plays, and not having to watch a guy argue with the ref and all the theatrics that goes along with it. Why? I mean, it's just like the Warriors are a more fun team to watch without Draymond. And I hear this, especially Fitzgerald. Oh, wait till Draymond comes back. Wait till Draymond comes back. They weren't a good team when Draymond was there. And I don't think they're going to be any better if he does come back. I don't understand it. Help me out here.
I appreciate you calling in, Duke, and I can hear your passion in your voice.
Like to help me out there.
I agree. Like, and Anthony, and I put Anthony in a very difficult position because he has to talk to these guys. So I didn't mean to do that, but it was basically like, it does seem like a weight, and he was very careful with how he said it. I was like, there does seem to be a weight lifted off this team with Draymond Green being out of there. And he kind of agreed with me. Like, there is something to be said about the team playing a lot freer, a lot more loose. Just the energy of this team is night and day. But they're going to bring him back. I mean, you heard it from Slater there, whether it's in January, whether it's some other time. They're going to bring him back because they paid him and they need him. The problem is, when they bring him back, who's going to suffer the most? That was playing well. Is it Kuminga? Is it Wiggins again? Is it, Wiggins, is he going to be traded? Like, Jonathan Kuminga is the guy I look at, who's already getting, the short end of the stick when it's not his day, when it's Andrew Wiggins' day, and then you don't want to, upset Klay Thompson in closing, so you just take Kuminga. That's the easiest option for Steve Kerr. So when and if they bring back Draymond Green, someone's going to have to suffer, unfortunately. And ultimately, is it going to be the Golden State Warriors and their hopes to win a championship, Sam Lubman?
Yeah, first I want to pick up the first part of Duke's question there is, the Draymond apologists. I mean, situations like that. First off, Bob Fitzgerald, he's a team employee. He's a broadcaster for the team. So he's not going to go out and on the broadcast crush Draymond Green.
He's also won 4 titles here. So this is a unique
there's that as well, too. And the fact of the matter is, like, people in the media, and this is, a little how the sausage is made little segment here. The relationships in this business do matter. The way, when you're around these guys every day, how you talk about them publicly matters, especially in the NBA. Players will remember what is said about them, especially if you're a media member who's part of a voting group of some sort, whether you're voting on all NBA, MVP, stuff like that, because so many players have incentives tied to some of these awards that these media members vote on. So it's like, there's been instances in the past where players will get irritated with writers because they didn't put them on an all NBA team of some sort, and ended up costing them money. So there's stuff like there's just weird dynamics like that when you're in the media. It's a tough line to have to kind of walk across, because you have to be honest to do your job correctly. You have to be fair and unbiased, but at the same time you have to acknowledge that you're around these people every day. Now, if you're someone in the media, I'm not going to name names, but if you're just like these people in the media who go out just kind of spouting all sorts of nonsense and just saying whatever pops into your head about certain players, they're going to notice that, and it's going to be reflected in how those players and coaches interact with you in various media sessions. So that's really just to answer that question there. And yeah, as far as just playing freer without Draymond, it does look like obviously everyone's having more fun with Draymond gone. A question I want to ask Anthony, and I'll throw this out there, is who's benefited the most from Draymond Green's absence? I didn't get a chance to ask Anthony that, but I'd definitely like to ask the roasters that. 888-957-9570. Who do you think has benefited the most from Draymond Green's absence? Because, again, it's going to change a lot when he does come back there. I do think, though, again, you're going to work him back in. You have to. I don't think you really have a choice. Okay.
I got an interesting answer.
Yeah, what's your answer there?
I'd say Stephen Curry. Because for the longest time, Stephen Curry was attached to Draymond Green. Steph can't win without Draymond Green. We just saw him win 5 straight games without Draymond Green. And Steph was being the leader of that team. You know what? This whole narrative that they can't win one without Draymond, they haven't done it, I understand. But you know what? Going forward, I can't count on that guy being day in and day out. I just can't. Even with this indefinite suspension, him to have learned his lesson, I can't expect that to change. Do you, honestly, in your heart of hearts, Sam, do you expect after this suspension that Draymond Green is going to change on the floor?
Absolutely not.
So if that's the narrative that both you and I are under the assumption that he is not going to change his play on the court, he's going to be balls to the wall all the time, and that's what you need. You need that. I understand it. But if you can't count on him, it's good to know that the other guys behind him can still win and pick up the slack when it becomes a Stephen Curry. Now, can they still win a title without him? Defensively, it's going to be tough. I do acknowledge that. Anthony Slater acknowledged that. He is the heart and soul of that defense, and the defense hasn't been awesome during his absence. I understand that. But the only way the young guys can get better at defense is playing more and more. Trace Jackson-Davis, I like what I see from him defensively. That's a great test. Even though he had a cup of coffee against Jokic, it's a great test.
That's how you get better.
The best
iron
of the best.
Iron.
Absolutely. Kuminga, same thing. That's why it just baffles me. Kuminga in the playoffs last year. I know you were coming off a title run. I know the minutes were scarce. You shrink your rotations. But that is invaluable stuff for him going forward. If he even got to just go up against LeBron, right? Go up against AD. Go up against the Sabonis, whoever he was going up against, and the Kings, right? The Harrison Barneses of the world, the De'Aaron Foxes. That is invaluable experience that I just felt like he missed on. And he can't now Moody, like that is great experience for him going forward. But again, Moses Moody now getting phased out of the lineup.
But again, they were part of a championship run the year before.
I guess, but they didn't
being
really
a part of that still, I do think you could take away from that.
They were on the bench.
But they were there for that's got to mean something, right?
A little bit, but I would like to see more like reps wise. They're only going to get better.
True.
You can only get like this isn't Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre. This isn't the quarterback position. This isn't Jordan Love studying behind Aaron Rodgers, right? Like there is aspects to that help, but ultimately you got to play. Brett wants to play on the morning roast. He's on the Bray Bridge. What's going on, Brett? You're on with Spadoni and Lubman.
Good morning, boys.
Morning, Brett. How's traffic on the bridge?
It's actually really smooth right now. Thank you for the holidays.
Oh, good.
I want to say, I was kind of touching on what you were just saying there. I think Kuminga is benefiting a lot from these minutes. I think Baby T is benefiting a lot from these minutes with Draymond gone. Hate him or love him, you're stuck with Dray. They did not re-sign him or give him an extension, I should say, to have him sit on the bench. They're just not going to have him sit on the bench. And I think where his best time is going to come in is during the playoffs. Now, what that looks like and what or how they're going to maneuver guys around, I'm not sure. But right now, they look good, and they played a quality game against Denver. That game was right there for the picking. It's good. They could easily be on a 6-game winning streak. The Warriors got some tough decisions ahead of themselves. Do you want to continue to build for the future, or do you want to see what you got going on? But anyway, thanks for taking my call, guys. Have a great day.
That's Brett on the Bay Bridge, 888-957-9570. If you would like to weigh in, you can call or text the Comcast Business Text line. Also hit us up on YouTube and Twitch. Search 95.7 The Game, like and subscribe there. We are streaming each and every day this week as we are Monday through Friday, usually from 5 a.m. through 7 p.m. No pregame show this week. We'll be back next week, though. Great points there from Brett talking about Kuminga and Draymond Green. They are stuck with him. They aren't moving off Draymond Green. When he is ready to come back, he will be inserted into the starting lineup. Maybe they bring him off the bench one game, get him reintegrated, but I don't see that really happening outside of one game. But if he's in the starting lineup, who's going to, take the brunt of it as far as their minutes go? Probably going to be Kuminga. In which case, you've already heard the comments from him when he was talking to Marcus Thompson II, who covers the team for The Athletic. Hey, it's hard, man. He takes this stuff very personally, and he's just a young player. The old guys do too. Klay Thompson, very hard. It's a humbling thing to get benched in the closing minutes. That's basically, if you're playing well, you're closing. If you're not, you're sitting on the bench. That's basically what it comes down to. And you know what? I appreciate Steve Kerr going that way, Sam, because it's finally he's chasing the wins. Right? There was that whole thing.
Yeah, I remember that a couple years ago.
And that's funny bringing it back up now. And they were chasing wins last year, all that sort of stuff. But they really have to. Mm-hmm. And that's forced his hand to, going with the hot hand. And that is something that is a breath of fresh air, I think, for Golden State Warriors fans this year with Steve Kerr. Talking about him having not his best year. I think this little run he's been on with the young guys has been a great breath of fresh air for Warriors fans because he's been forced to go with the hot hand.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And that would kind of get like we're talking about who's benefiting the most from Draymond's absence. I mean, again, I think the easy answer is definitely the young guys. But Steve Kerr might be benefiting from this absence because, like you said, he said that whoever's playing the best at the end will be playing at the end. I think it took him a while to really commit to that. I think that kind of came to a head when with the whole Moses Moody incident against the Kings, where he admitted afterwards, I should have left Moses in there. I feel like that might have been kind of like a wake up call for Kerr. It's like, you know what, if I'm going to say this, I need to commit to it and actually play the guys who are playing the best in the closing minutes of each game. But I feel like by taking Draymond Green out of the equation for the time being, we're talking earlier in the show about, Steve Kerr, is he coaching for his next contract with the Warriors, or is he coaching in a way that he can explain it to, in future job interviews? With Draymond Green's absence, it's almost provided Kerr an avenue to kind of coach himself into a contract for next year, because he has no choice but to find alternate options besides Draymond Green. He has no choice but to get Jonathan Kuminga in the rotation as much as possible, to get Trayce Jackson-Davis on the court as much as possible, to start Brandon Podziemski. It's opened up so many avenues for Steve Kerr that have improved this team to a point where none of these things probably would have happened if Draymond Green hadn't gotten suspended, because there's that whole concept of loyalty. Does Steve Kerr feel loyal to Draymond Green and keeping him on the court there, because that is his guy. That is his guy who he won 4 championships with, along with Clay and Steph. There's this desire. You want to see the big three age together, keep winning together, and eventually maybe fritter out together. But it's come to the point where that's clearly not going to be the case. The big three, they're not going to finish their careers together. I think that's kind of obvious at this point.
Locking that in? You locking that in? The big three aren't going to lock. Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, and Draymond Green will not finish their careers together as Golden State.
And honestly, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world. I think right now, and we posed this question, remember, a couple weeks ago on the show. Would you rather have Steph finish his career with Clay or finish his career with Draymond? I would lean more Clay, especially because the way Draymond's absence has kind of set the table for guys to kind of not so much replace Draymond, but to come in and kind of show that they could be useful in Draymond Green's absence. Like the rise of Jonathan Kuminga totally changes just what you want to do with Draymond Green. Because if Kuminga can provide that same defensive intensity with a little bit more of a scoring punch, I mean, this isn't me saying that Jonathan Kuminga is the next Draymond Green. I'm saying that Jonathan Kuminga has positioned himself to where if you don't have Draymond Green, you could still maybe rely on Jonathan Kuminga to maybe not replace Draymond Green, but to at least slide in there, handle the role that Draymond maybe had, and kind of provide similar levels of production.
What's funny? We've been talking about Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga. We've been talking about a lot of players. The guy we really haven't been talking about at all, who's actually been pretty solid this year, the guy that we all thought was going to be a huge reason for the success or the failure of this year, has been Chris Paul. I haven't even brought that guy's name up at all. And I think that just speaks to, how consistent he's been. Everyone thought this guy coming into the season was going to be enemy number one. And he's done a great job with the young guys. When it's the development of young players, you cannot take that away from Chris Paul. He does a great job picking and choosing his spots, feeding these young guys, the pick and roll game. Him and Saric obviously have a very good on-court relationship when it comes to attacking, penetrating, kicking out. But his role can't be understated when it comes to the progression of Jonathan Kuminga, I believe. I think he's been a resounding voice in that locker room specifically for this. All the faults that Draymond Green, Steph, Clay, in regards to, and we can give Steve Kerr a lot of it because he's the head coach, but I look at some of those veterans too, Sam, when it comes to the development of these young guys. I know it's not their job technically, but you should be a leader for them. And I think Chris Paul's been a great leader in that locker room for these young guys. 888-957-9570. I just, in a year, in a preseason where we were crushing the signing of Chris Paul, give the guy some flowers, man.
Oh, absolutely.
It's worked. Now, I don't know if he's going to be on the team next month or these coming months. He might be gone. But I'm looking at the lasting impact, possibly. The lasting impact he's had is helping these young guys.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned there, it's like, how much of a role do the veterans have in kind of developing these young guys? I think that there is some sort of a role that they should take there, because remember when this dynasty first got started, with the young Steph, with the young Clay, with the young Draymond, the veteran leaders on that team, they call them, the three old wise men or whatever, David West, Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala.
Shout out Christmas, three wise men.
Yeah, they were.
JC.
I want Iguodala.
Yeah, so I mean, it was those three guys. I mean, they were the veteran leaders of that clubhouse there, of that locker room back in the day. They kind of set the tone, really, so to speak, of the Warriors culture. Steph, Clay, and Dre, obviously, they brought the performance, but it was the steadying hand of those three wise men, not James Wiseman, David West, Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala. They set the tone in that locker room that really kind of, I think, bore this Warriors culture that carried this dynasty for as long as it did. And I think that, it does become on Steph, Clay, and Dre to kind of pass the template that was established back in 2012, back in 2013. They have to pass that template on to the next generation of Warriors. So I do think, in terms of how they contribute to the development, I think maybe that could be up for debate. But I do think that, the veterans, they do have a role to play in getting these young guys integrated with this team, integrated with this system, integrated with this culture. Because if they want this thing to continue past, their time here, that's how you do it, really.
Who's on a roll and is crushing it? Sam Lubin, ladies and gentlemen, filling in for Joe Shasky, Joe Spadoni filling in for Bonte Hill. And you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app. Download the Odyssey app and favorite 95.7 The Game for the best and most up-to-date sports coverage. And don't forget that you can also watch us every day on our YouTube and Twitch streams. Just log on and search 95.7 The Game. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel while you are there. Again, 888-957-9570. That's the number to call or text the Comcast Business Text line and search 95.7 The Game, like and subscribe. Talking Warriors, we talked some Niners early on. Best and worst players of the year is kind of what we're going to do here this last hour. Who's had the best year? Who's had some of the worst years? You can keep it to the Bay Area if you want. I think Sam might have some. We doing King of the Hill, Sammy?
Yeah, I got to do a King of the Hill. Usually it's Bonte's thing, but it's a paid segment, so we want to do it every... Call it the King of the Sam Hill.
King of the Sam Hill. Yeah, the Sam.
Something like that. We'll figure out.
Not bad.
We've been workshopping the name. I probably should have had that down by the time we started this.
It's all good. You know what?
It's live radio for you.
There you go.
We'll do it live.
Dan and SF will do that live. Dan and SF wants to join the conversation. What's going on, Dan? You're on with Spadoni and Lubin.
Yeah, sure. Hey, fellas, how are you? Yeah, in my opinion, J.K. and Trace have obviously benefited the most with Dre out, getting the minutes. I see why Steve, though, sometimes doesn't play J.K. as much as J.K. thinks he should or fans think he should. He's, listen, he's the 7th overall pick for a reason. Great athleticism, good explosion, has size. But he's not always the smartest player, though. He takes some bad shots. Sometimes he holds the ball too long in the offense and, kind of throws the offense out of it. He's still learning a lot of nuances of the NBA game. And I think that Trace has developed a lot with Draymond being out, getting more opportunity because he wasn't a guy that played every game when Draymond was healthy. He'd have some DNP. So seeing Trace roll to the rim and actually be a threat to score, kind of opens up another offensive dimension. So I think those guys particularly, those guys in the front court have benefited a lot, and I think it's getting their confidence up as Draymond's out.
All right, that's Dan and SF, 888-957-9570 if you'd like to weigh in as well. Who has benefited the most on the Warriors with the absence of Draymond Green? We heard Trace Jackson-Davis, Jonathan Kuminga, Steve Kerr. I said Stephen Curry. He's been forced to, win games without Draymond Green, something he hasn't done a lot of, during his time as a Golden State Warrior because Draymond Green has been tied at the hip. Him, Klay Thompson, all of them. The big three, right? But Steph, he's shown. This team has shown. They can win without Draymond. Now, can they win a championship without him? Probably not. He is still the best defensive player on the team, one of the best defensive players in the league. Is he what he once was? No. But he's still damn good. The problem is, guy gets ejected, guy does boneheaded stuff, and he hurts the on-court product of the team.
Draymond, go bye-bye.
Exactly. Far too often I've had to play that drop here.
And it doesn't help when you're not on the court. You can be as good on defense as you want. You can be barking out orders all you want. And yeah, that's where the most important season of his career, Spadoni.
He said that.
And
Bonte never lets him forget it.
No, we should let anybody forget it. You said this is the most important season of his career. Steve Kerr even came on and explained what he meant by that. And it's just he's completely pissed it away. and he may have pissed his entire future with the Warriors away because of his antics this year, to where it's just, I think it would have been different too also if during the suspension the Warriors just absolutely cratered and they lost, 6 in a row and the young guys looking terrible, because then it's like, oh, Draymond's gone and clearly they need him. But the Warriors, again, it's almost like this is why Draymond probably has had one of the worst years of 2023, is that here at the end, we're kind of starting to see that Warriors might not need you as much as they've needed him in the past.